Hello, welcome to Studies in Theatre MOOC program. We are into the discussion about performance movements and styles carrying forward from the past lectures. Now, in today's discussion, we will first of all take up epic theatre, which emerged in the early to mid 20th century as a response to the political climate of the time under the influence of Bertolt Brecht. It is a didactic form of drama designed to engage audiences objectively and encourage critical thinking. Epic theatre uses loosely connected scenes that avoid illusion and often break the fourth wall to address the audience directly. The key objective is to create estrangement or Verfremdung effect, emphasizing reason and objectivity over emotional engagement. So to look at more details of how to explain this further, as you can see that Verfremdung effect, which is a word of German language, it is one of the key principles of epic theatre. This technique aims to this particular technique aims to prevent the audience from becoming emotionally immersed in the play, encouraging them to maintain a critical and analytical perspective. Brecht achieved this by using various techniques such as breaking the fourth wall. So, if you are talking to the audience across the play, across the stage, where there is an invisible fourth wall present between the performers and the audience, and if the audience are glued to their chairs and they are not allowed to talk to the performers, they start immersing in the play, and which is generally considered very good and the sought after target of the performers, the actors. But in epic theatre, Brecht feels that audience need to think and critically look at the performance rather than just immerse in it. And for that, he doesn't want audience to completely get lost in the performative atmosphere, but also keep analyzing it critically. Look at the critical perspectives of the play. Look at it as a text to be critically viewed. And for this, he breaks the fourth wall. Audience are allowed to interact. Then there is didacticism. Epic theatre is didactic in nature, meaning that it has a strong educational or instructive element. The plays are designed to provoke thought and discussion about social and political issues. Brecht wanted the audience to leave the theatre with a heightened awareness of the world's problems and a sense of responsibility to address them. Then next is gestures. Brecht introduced the concept of gestures, which refers to the physical and gestural characteristics of a character that reveal their social and political context. By emphasizing gestures, the actors draw attention to the character's role in society rather than seeking emotional identification with them. Now, that's a very important break away or shift from the previous role of theatre that was sought, because theatre is many a times art and performance is seen as some kind of escape from the world of reality. And it is believed that if we start watching somebody else's problem, somebody else's pain as a matter of entertainment, then it becomes an escape for oneself to forget about the real world. And this is a role that has been very much celebrated. But in epic theatre, this role has been subverted, or I must say it is undermined. In fact, what signification Brecht and epic theatre does to audiences to look at the performance as a site of creating ideas, contesting problems, thinking about the world, and looking at every art piece as a matter of critical representation or artistic representation in critical paradigm of the real world. Songs and music are also used. It incorporates in the performance in epic theater. It serves to underscore the key themes and provide commentary on the action. So, minimalist set design also is a very significant aspect of this. Brecht's epic theater was a reaction against the prevailing naturalistic and emotional style of theater in his time. He believed that by keeping the audience at a critical distance, theater could become a powerful tool for social and political change. And epic theater had a profound impact on the development of modern and experimental theater. It continues to influence the contemporary theater practices. The term Verfremdung is a German word. I must elaborate a little bit about this. And it is translated as alienation or estrangement in English. And in the context of drama and theater, it is associated with the concept of Verfremdungseffekt, which is commonly referred to as alienation effect or distancing effect, which means that audience are to be distanced emotionally from the play. They are not required, or they are not invited, or they are not sought to be participating in the play emotionally. The purpose is not to suspend disbelief but to make the audience see the world as it is. Epic theater emphasizes the audience's perspective and reaction through deliberate techniques, encouraging individual engagement. This effect creates distance between audience and performance. Historicization. Sets play in historical context to reflect on contemporary issues. So these are the aspects of this theater, epic theater. Now moving on, Theater of the Oppressed, or TO. It was developed by Brazilian director Augusto Boal in the 1950s and 60s. Boal's work is based on the premise that dialogue is fundamental to human interaction, and the oppression arises when dialogue becomes one-sided. Now, interaction is the key. You can see how different these kinds of styles are. At one end, the experimental theater, like theater of cruelty, constructivism, and other kinds of theaters, they are seeking to break down the representation of communication through language and its usage on the stage, like theater of the absurd. But on the other hand, playwrights like no, sorry, directors like Augusto Boal are looking to empower interaction because they consider dialogue is fundamental to human interaction. And if dialogue becomes one-sided when oppression arises. So dialogue of exchange of dialogues represent equality, inclusivity, and, respect for each other's ideas and status. So this needs to be highlighted and signified. The key principles of this theater of the oppressed includes forum theater. So it is one of the central techniques in forum theater, a short scene depicting situation of oppression or conflict is presented to the audience. However, the scene is deliberately left unresolved. And spectators are then encouraged to step into the performance, taking on the roles of the characters and interact with the scene. This allows them to explore different solutions and strategies for addressing social issues and conflicts. So this is one method where audience step in when the stories and the plot is left unresolved. Audience participates and tries to resolve the problems of the characters or the unresolved problem in the plot of the character. Then the next thing is image theater. Image theater is another technique used in theater of the absurd, where participants create physical images or frozen tableaus to represent their experiences, emotions, and social situations. These images serve as starting point for discussion and reflection on issue of oppression and inequality. Then which means, there is characters will stand or lie down or hang or stand on their toes in a certain physical representation, and they will remain static in that in order to signify the representation of a certain story or a fact or a reality that is embodied in that representation. Then legislative theatre, Bole also developed this concept of legislative theatre, which involves using theatrical performances and audience interaction to propose and discuss potential policy changes and solutions to societal problems. It aims to bridge the gap between theatre and politics, giving marginalized communities a voice in the decision-making process. Then cop in the head. This is a very significant idea. It refers to internalized oppressor within individuals. Participants in theatre of the oppressed exercises are encouraged to identify and challenge their internalized biases and oppressive beliefs. So people who are participating in this kind of theatre are encouraged to look within, to find out their own issues, their own biases, their own prejudices, and look for the oppressor in the head, cop in the head. So we have to create a cop in the head who is policing our own prejudices and oppressive beliefs and biases. Spect actor. In this kind of technique of theatre of the oppressed, individuals are not just passive spectators but active spect actors who engage in theatrical process. They are encouraged to take on the roles of characters, intervene in scenes, and suggest alternative resolutions. So, theatre of the absurd looks to deal with, widely looks to deal with the problems of the society by looking at theatre as a tool for social and political change, education, and community empowerment. It has been used in various contexts, including schools, prisons, community centers, and social justice movements to address the issues such as racism, oppression, gender inequality, and other such things. His work has influenced profoundly the intersection of theatre, activism, education, social cause, and this is a very crucial kind of a thing which is relevant for today's times to look at the world. The audience and performers are sitting together discussing, and this is a kind of theatre which is significant for resolving the problems of the world and taking forward the modern concepts of theatre. Then we move on to some techniques that I've already elaborated in front of you. There is one more that I should add, the rainbow of desire. The rainbow of desire applies as a psychotherapeutic technique in theatre of the absurd. It aims to externalize internal feelings and relationships collaboratively, providing a systematic method for exploration and expression. Now, this technique was also developed by Augusto Boal. He, Augusto Boal focuses on issues of oppression and social justice. So, the rainbow of desire specifically explores the inner thoughts, feelings, and conflicts of individuals in various social and personal contexts. It provides a platform for individuals to explore and express their desires, fears, and aspirations through theatre and exercises. So, the principles of this technique, the rainbow of desire technique, is exploring inner conflicts, which means the rainbow of desire is designed to delve into the inner conflicts and emotions experienced by individuals. So, participants use theatre exercises to externalize and express their inner thoughts. Then the role reversal. One of the central techniques in this method is role reversal, where participants switch roles with one another, allowing them to gain a deeper understanding of the perspectives and experiences of others. This can be particularly helpful in addressing conflicts and misunderstandings. It's very, very important thing. Then there are games also. He developed various exercises, drills, and games to help participants explore their desires, fears, and emotions. These exercises often involve improvisation, physical movement, and verbal expression. The aim is to create a safe and creative space for self exploration. So these are some aspects of the Rainbow of Desire technique, which are in tune with other aspects like image theater, where participants use the human body to express images, forum theater, etc. So these are interconnected. They are, all these things are not in isolation from each other, but they are interconnected to each other. Then the next one is burlesque. Now you can say that burlesque is a word that existed much earlier, but this is a revival. So it is a form of entertainment characterized by parody, satire, and exaggerated performances, often featuring elaborate costumes, humorous skits, and provocative dance routines. It originated in the 19th century and gained popularity in variety shows and vaudeville theatre. Burlesque often includes elements of comedy, music, dance, striptease. It challenges societal norms and conventions through humor and exaggeration while celebrating sexuality and individuality. Modern burlesque has experienced a revival, with performers blending traditional elements with contemporary themes and styles. So that is why this revival, because of the revival, this is present here. You can look at it. I'm just mentioning it here. I'm trying to give you as much information as possible so that you can always choose what direction you can go further in. So this is one of that kind. This is one burlesque performance in 1950. Then we come to agitprop. Now agitprop is a very important term, and it is a portmanteau of agitation and propaganda. The two Russian words that have combined together are agitatsia and propaganda. So in Russian, this experiment happened basically in Russian language in Soviet Russia, where the two terms were put together to create a portmanteau word, and that is called as agitprop. It refers to a political strategy employing art, theatre, literature, and media to promote promote a specific ideology or agenda. The key features of agitprop theatre, agitprop paradigm are, first is, the political messaging. Agitprop typically conveys political messages often aligned with a particular political party, movement, or government. Its primary goal is to persuade or mobilize the audience to support a specific cause. So it's propaganda which is served, the agitation that helps to serve that propaganda in a certain emotion, in a certain mood and fervor, and a kind of action or awareness or activism which is sought to stand for a cause, that is disseminated in the performance text. Then it's a very simple kind of a thing. Simplicity and repetition are also very important features of agitprop, because messages are often straightforward and concise and easy to understand. So the performers rely on repetition to reinforce the message and make it memorable. Slogans, catchphrases, and visual symbols are commonly used for agitprop. The mass communication element of agitprop is very significant to underline, because it aims to reach a wide audience and is often distributed through mass media channels such as newspapers, posters, radio broadcast, and late and television also when it came to the scene. Nowadays, of course, it's internet that is playing the role for that. Then agitprop performances, agitprop theatre has an emotional appeal, because it employs emotional appeal to elicit a strong message, a strong response among the audience. It may use vivid imagery, dramatic storytelling, or appeals to fear, anger, or patriotism to convey the message. It extends into various artistic spheres. It is not just present only in theatre, but it is also present in music and literature. And the performers create works that reflect and promote the desired political message. For example, agitprop posters and murals that have very striking visuals and symbolism built in them. Then the historical context of agitprop, it has been widely used in various political and social movements throughout history, including the Russian Revolution and the Soviet Union, where it played a significant role in shaping public opinion and mobilizing support for the communist cause. It has also been employed by other political movements and governments worldwide. So you can see this poster, agitprop poster by Vladimir Mayakovsky, titled "Want It? Join." You want to overcome cold, you want to overcome hunger, you want to eat, you want to drink, hasten to join shock brigades of exemplary labor. So you can see the message in this poster, which is seeking to talk about the jobs and labor jobs, and you want to overcome cold, you want to overcome hunger, you want to eat, and just join it. So hasten to join the shock brigades of exemplary labor. Now the next thing is immersive theatre. Immersive theatre is a contemporary performance art this is an art form distinct from traditional theatre that blurs the boundaries between the audience and the performers. You can see there are some repetitive tropes. Somewhere it's the fourth wall that figures in many forms and movement. Somewhere it's the breaking down of communication. Somewhere it's the propaganda. Somewhere it's the political messaging. So I have been continuously saying that don't see one kind of movement in isolation from the other, because it's the entire landscape of ideas, it's the entire landscape of modern performance scenario that is giving birth to these kinds of experiences. So this immersive theatre engages the audience physically, emotionally, as well as intellectually, creating a more interactive and participatory experience, becoming part of the narrative or environment. It seeks to break the traditional fourth wall, again encouraging the direct engagement of the audience. Then environments are carefully designed to enhance the immersive experience using sound, lighting, and set design. And performers interact directly with the audience member. The narrative can also change according to this participation of the performers. So this is one very significant aspect about the immersive theatre. One very famous Sleep No More is the play. Then Punch Drunks, The Drowned Man, and Then She Fell are notable examples of immersive theatre. In Sleep No More, which is an adaptation of Shakespeare's Macbeth, as the phrase indicates, sleep no more, the famous quote from Shakespeare's play. It was created by the British theatre company Punch Drunk and first premiered in London in 2003, before coming to New York City in 2011. Instead of traditional dialogue, in this play, the narrative unfolds through visual storytelling, dance, and movement. Each audience member's experience is unique as they follow different characters and scenes, piecing together the story of Macbeth and his descent into madness. So this play is known for its immersive and mysterious atmosphere, where participants are allowed to explore the dark and haunting world of the play at their own speed. Then Punch Drunks, The Drowned Man. This is another immersive theatre production which premiered in 2013. And unlike Sleep No More, it is an original story inspired by inspired by Bushner's Wojciech and Nathaniel West's The Day of the Locust. So this production is set in a massive abandoned building transformed into the fictional Temple Studios, a 1960s Hollywood film studio. Audience members wear masks and explore a complex labyrinth of sets, including offices, sound stages, and desert landscapes. So audience is moving with the performance on in the different parts of this building. So this play features multiple intersecting storylines, and participants can choose which characters to follow and which scenes to witness. The immersive experience blurs the lines between reality and fiction, inviting the audience to become part of the narrative. Then another play, Then She Fell, is also an immersive theatre production produced in 2012. This also takes place in a multi-story Victorian era building, transforming it into a fantastical and surreal world of Lewis Carroll's stories. It explores themes of madness, memory, and identity. So unlike the larger immersive productions, Then She Fell offers a more intimate experience and to the people who are watching it. Because audience is limited in this play. It's not a very big audience, usually around 15 to 20 per performance. And participants engage in one-on-one and small group interactions with the performers, making the experience deeply personal and immersive. So these theatre productions of immersive theatre productions have pushed the boundaries of traditional theatre by providing audience members with unique and interactive experiences. And it challenges the conventional notions of storytelling. They have received critical acclaim for their creativity, artistry, and ability to transport the audience in richly designed and mysterious worlds. So we have discussed these representational movements today in this lecture: immersive theatre and the theatre, agitprop theatre culture, then burlesque and different kinds of techniques of theatre of the oppressed. So these tell you that what such wide spectrum of performance culture is prevailing because of the different kinds of performance movements, art movements, styles, and the philosophy of the playwrights, the philosophy of the directors, and the worldview of freedom that is being celebrated by actors, theater people, theater practitioners. So it's a significant thing to understand that how it is never ending. There are so many things that can be added to this discussion, but I'm sure that these lectures have helped you in carrying forward your own style of working into theatre world, and your own understanding of how you can assess and see the performances around you from different perspectives, because there's each of these styles, each of these movements, each of these trends are not singularly present or present in isolation in one performance or the other, because apart from the path breaking performances, the rest of the people who follow these things as inspiration, they create permutation and combination of various kinds of styles. So it would be interesting if you look around yourself and look around with what performances you have watched and try to analyze them, that what are the different trends that are present in the performances.